My ex-wife tried to have me committed to steal my assets. The involuntary hold she ended up with instead was karma. Looking back at the worst year of my life, I realize how close I came to losing everything because of someone I once loved more than anything. The divorce had been finalized for 8 months, and I was finally starting to feel like myself again. I had moved into a decent apartment downtown, started working out regularly, and even began dating someone new. Life was looking up for the first time in what felt like forever. Then the phone calls started. My ex would call me at all hours, sometimes crying, sometimes screaming, always demanding something. She claimed I owed her more money from the divorce settlement, even though everything had been legally resolved. The judge had split our assets fairly, giving her the house and half of our savings while I kept my retirement accounts and my small business. She got to keep the car we had bought together, and I took on most of the debts. It was painful but fair, and I was ready to move on. But she wasn't ready to let me go. The calls became more frequent and more erratic. She would show up at my apartment building, demanding to be let in. My neighbors started complaining about the disturbances. I changed my phone number twice, but she somehow always found the new one. When I blocked her on social media, she created fake accounts to message me. The harassment was relentless and exhausting. One evening, I was having dinner with my new girlfriend when my ex showed up at the restaurant. She caused such a scene that the manager had to call security. She was screaming about how I had ruined her life and stolen her future. The whole restaurant was staring at us, and I felt humiliated. My girlfriend was understanding, but I could see the concern in her eyes. This wasn't normal behavior, and it was affecting every aspect of my life. The breaking point came when she started showing up at my workplace. She would wait in the parking lot for hours, following me when I left for lunch or meetings. My colleagues noticed and started asking questions. My boss pulled me aside and expressed concern about the situation. I was worried about losing my job, which I had worked so hard to build up after the divorce. The stress was overwhelming, and I barely slept anymore. That's when she escalated things to a level I never could have imagined. She started calling the police, claiming I was stalking her. The first time officers showed up at my door, I was confused and cooperative. I explained the situation, showed them the restraining order I had filed against her, and they left without incident. But the calls kept coming. She would report that I was outside her house, following her to work or threatening her over the phone. Each time I had to prove where I was and what I was doing. I started documenting everything, keeping receipts, taking photos of my location, and asking friends to verify my whereabouts. The police were getting tired of the false reports, but they had to investigate each one. The whole situation was becoming a nightmare that consumed my entire life. Then came the call that changed everything. She contacted Adult Protective Services, claiming I was having a mental breakdown and was dangerous to myself and others. She told them I had been sending her threatening messages and making plans to hurt myself. She painted such a convincing picture of a man spiraling out of control that they actually believed her. The social worker who called me was professional but clearly concerned about my mental state. I tried to explain that my ex was lying, that this was all part of her harassment campaign, but I could hear the skepticism in the social worker's voice. She had documentation of multiple police reports, witness statements from my ex, and what appeared to be a pattern of concerning behavior. From the outside, it probably did look like I was having some kind of breakdown. The worst part was that my ex had gotten some of our mutual friends involved. She had convinced them that I was struggling with mental health issues and needed intervention. These were people who had known me for years, but they were hearing only her side of the story. They started reaching out to me with concern, asking if I was okay, suggesting I get help. Even my own family began to worry. The manipulation was so sophisticated that I started questioning my own sanity. Was I really handling the divorce as well as I thought? Was my behavior actually concerning? The gaslighting was so intense that I found myself doubting everything. I would lie awake at night, replaying conversations and interactions, trying to figure out what was real and what was manipulation. Then she made her biggest mistake. She filed a petition for an involuntary psychiatric hold, claiming I was an immediate danger to myself and others. She had collected what she presented as evidence of my deteriorating mental state. There were screenshots of text messages that looked threatening, witness statements from people claiming I had been acting erratically, and medical records that she had somehow obtained suggesting I was not taking care of myself properly. The petition was scheduled for a hearing, and I was ordered to appear in court. I was terrified. If the judge granted the hold, I would be committed to a psychiatric facility for at least 72 hours, possibly longer. During that time, my ex would have the opportunity to challenge the divorce settlement, claiming I had been mentally incompetent during the proceedings. She could potentially get access to my business, my retirement accounts, and everything I had worked for. I hired the best attorney I could afford, and we spent weeks preparing for the hearing. We gathered evidence of her harassment, documented all the false police reports, and collected witness statements from people who could attest to my mental stability. My girlfriend, my coworkers, and even my neighbors were willing to testify on my behalf. The attorney was confident we could prove this was a malicious prosecution. The day of the hearing arrived, and I was more nervous than I had ever been in my life. My ex showed up with her own attorney and a folder full of what she claimed was evidence of my mental instability. She looked calm and collected, playing the role of a concerned ex-wife perfectly. I could see the judge listening intently to her presentation, and my heart was racing. But then something unexpected happened. The judge asked to see the original text messages that my ex had submitted as evidence. When she couldn't produce them, claiming her phone had been damaged, the judge became suspicious. My attorney had hired a digital forensics expert who testified that the screenshots appeared to have been doctored. The metadata didn't match, and there were inconsistencies in the formatting that suggested manipulation. As the hearing continued, more holes appeared in her story. The witness statements she had collected were from people who admitted they hadn't actually seen me in months. The medical records she had obtained were incomplete and taken out of context. Most damaging of all, the police reports she had filed were contradicted by security camera footage that my attorney had obtained from various locations. The judge was not pleased. He questioned my ex directly about the discrepancies in her evidence, and she became flustered and defensive. She started making accusations against me in open court, claiming I had somehow orchestrated everything to make her look bad. Her behavior became increasingly erratic as she realized her plan was falling apart. Then came the moment I will never forget. The judge looked at my ex and asked her to explain why she had filed multiple false police reports. He had done his own investigation and found that every single report she had made about my behavior had been proven false. The security footage, witness statements, and phone records all contradicted her claims. She had been caught in a web of lies so complex that she couldn't keep track of them all. My ex broke down completely. She started screaming about how unfair the divorce had been, how I had taken everything from her, and how she deserved better. She accused me of turning everyone against her and claimed that I was controlling the entire situation. The judge had to call for order in the courtroom, and her own attorney looked embarrassed by her outburst. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. The judge announced that based on the evidence presented, he was dismissing the petition for my involuntary hold. However, he was deeply concerned about my ex's behavior and her apparent disconnect from reality. He ordered a psychological evaluation for her, and when she refused to cooperate, he issued an involuntary psychiatric hold for her instead. The irony was incredible. The very weapon she had tried to use against me was now being turned on her. She was escorted from the courtroom by deputies and taken to the same facility where she had tried to have me committed. The judge also issued a permanent restraining order against her and ordered her to pay my legal fees and damages for the malicious prosecution. The relief I felt was overwhelming. For months, I had been living in fear of losing everything I had worked for. The stress had been eating me alive, affecting my job, my relationships, and my health. But now it was over, and justice had been served in the most poetic way possible. During her psychiatric hold, my ex was evaluated by multiple professionals who confirmed what I had suspected all along. She was dealing with some serious mental health issues that had been exacerbated by the divorce. The harassment, the false reports, and the elaborate scheme to have me committed were all symptoms of a much larger problem. She needed help, but not the kind she had been trying to force on me. The experience taught me so much about manipulation, gaslighting, and the importance of documenting everything. I had kept detailed records of every interaction, every phone call, and every incident. Without that documentation, I might not have been able to prove my innocence. The digital forensics expert, the security footage, and the witness statements all came together to create an unshakable case. My relationship with my girlfriend actually grew stronger through this ordeal. She had seen me at my worst, dealing with constant stress and harassment, but she had stood by me. She had even testified at the hearing, describing how my ex's behavior had affected both of us. Having someone believe in me when I was starting to doubt myself made all the difference. The legal battle wasn't completely over after the hearing. My ex's attorney tried to appeal the decision, but the evidence was too strong. The case was thrown out and she was ordered to pay additional court costs. The permanent restraining order meant she couldn't contact me directly or through third parties. For the first time in over a year, I felt truly safe. But perhaps the most satisfying part was how the truth came out to our mutual friends and family. Many of them had been manipulated by her lies, but the court proceedings made everything clear. They realized they had been used as pawns in her scheme, and several of them reached out to apologize. It was vindicating to have people who had questioned my sanity acknowledge that I had been telling the truth all along. My ex spent several weeks in the psychiatric facility, getting the help she desperately needed. When she was released, she was required to continue outpatient treatment and regular check-ins with a social worker. The restraining order remained in effect, so I didn't have any direct contact with her, but I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was doing better. The whole experience changed my perspective on relationships and trust. I had loved this person, built a life with her, and shared my deepest secrets with her. To have her use that intimacy against me in such a calculated way was devastating. It took months of my own counseling to work through the betrayal and learn to trust again. But I also learned something valuable about resilience and the power of truth. Even when everything seemed stacked against me, even when I was starting to doubt my own memories and perceptions, the truth eventually came out. The evidence spoke for itself and justice was served. Sometimes the best revenge really is living well and letting karma do its work. Looking back now, I can see how this experience made me stronger and wiser. I learned to set better boundaries, to document important interactions, and to trust my instincts when something doesn't feel right. The harassment and false accusations were terrible to endure, but they also revealed the true character of someone I had once planned to spend my life with. The business I had worked so hard to protect during the divorce actually thrived in the aftermath. Without the constant stress and distraction of dealing with my ex's harassment, I was able to focus on growing the company. I hired new employees, expanded into new markets, and saw profits increase significantly. The financial stability gave me confidence and peace of mind. My relationship with my girlfriend also continued to flourish. We had been through something traumatic together, and it had shown us both what we were capable of handling. She had seen me at my lowest point and had chosen to stand by me. That kind of loyalty and support was something I had never experienced before, and it made our bond even stronger. The legal fees were substantial, but they were worth every penny. My attorney had done an incredible job of building a case that not only protected me, but also exposed the truth about what had been happening. The fact that my ex was ordered to pay those fees was just an added bonus. It sent a clear message that false accusations and malicious prosecution have consequences. The restraining order gave me the peace of mind I needed to rebuild my life. I no longer had to worry about unexpected visits, harassing phone calls, or false police reports. I could focus on my work, my relationships, and my future without constantly looking over my shoulder. The psychological relief was immense. As time passed, I began to feel sorry for my ex in a way I hadn't expected. The mental health issues that had driven her to such extreme behavior were real, and she was getting the help she needed. I couldn't forgive what she had done, but I could understand that she had been struggling with problems that were bigger than our divorce. The psychiatric hold that had been intended for me had actually been exactly what she needed. The whole experience taught me about the importance of having a strong support system. My girlfriend, my family, my friends, and even my coworkers had all played a role in helping me get through the worst of it. They had believed in me when I was starting to doubt myself, and they had been willing to stand up for me when it mattered most. I also learned valuable lessons about the legal system and the importance of having good representation. My attorney had been worth every penny I paid him. He had not only protected my interests, but had also anticipated my ex's moves and prepared counter-strategies. The digital forensics expert, the private investigator, and the other professionals he had brought in had all contributed to the successful outcome. The experience also made me more aware of how domestic abuse and harassment can affect men. There's often an assumption that men are always the aggressors in these situations, but that's not always the case. The false accusations, the gaslighting, and the attempt to have me committed were all forms of abuse that could have destroyed my life if I hadn't been able to prove my innocence. In the end, the involuntary psychiatric hold that my ex had tried to use against me became the very thing that got her the help she needed. It was a perfect example of how sometimes the universe has a way of balancing things out. She had tried to destroy my life out of spite and greed, but her own actions had revealed her true mental state and resulted in appropriate intervention. The aftermath was everything I had hoped for during the darkest days of the harassment. I had my life back, my business was thriving, and I was in a healthy relationship with someone who truly supported me. The constant stress and anxiety were gone, replaced by a sense of peace and security I hadn't felt in years. Today, I'm grateful for everything that happened, even the terrible parts. The experience taught me so much about myself, about relationships, and about the importance of standing up for the truth. It also showed me that sometimes the best way to deal with someone who's trying to destroy you is to simply let them destroy themselves. The karma in this situation was so perfect that it almost seemed scripted. My ex had tried to use the mental health system as a weapon against me, and that same system had identified her as the one who actually needed help. The lies she had told, the false reports she had filed, and the malicious prosecution she had initiated had all backfired spectacularly. Looking back, I can see that this whole ordeal was actually a blessing in disguise. It forced me to become stronger, more resilient, and more aware of the people I allow into my life. It also led me to meet some incredible people, including my attorney who became a friend and my girlfriend who became my wife. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us end up leading to the best things.